Japanese people. I was with them. I actually, yeah, I think we did see some Japanese people. Yeah, they were smoking on the balcony, weren't they? Smoking cigars. Yeah, there was a load of Japanese people smoking cigars. Yeah, but here's the thing. Jamie, sorry about this. Jamie's looking at me going, what's he talking about? When the whole thing started with Wuhan, a guy rang in from Wuhan, and he was an English guy, and apparently Wuhan has got quite a big English community. And he was like a DJ. He'd gone there to work for some computer company, but he was a DJ in his spare time. And he said, "I do like parties for the English expats who live in Wuhan." I was amazed. I was like, "Blimey, it's a small world, isn't it?"
Well, the way the show's going, Mike, you'll have news correspondents all over the world, and you'll be, taking over the BBC. I always find it funny with the BBC. Anything that happens, they have to have a correspondent somewhere in the world, don't they? Much it costs the taxpayer to do that. Absolutely mental.
Whereas we take a different approach, where we go, look, here's the thing: if you're in a particular place, whether it be South Wales or the South China Sea, you talk to us. We haven't got any money. We can't pay you anything. It doesn't cost the taxpayer anything. And, it's a very successful model because you know just as much as any BBC correspondent, if not more, because you happen to be immersed in the community where you live,
Oh, totally, Mike. And talking to the BBC, actually, and some stats, I know some other topics we can get into. One, probably, I can imagine you haven't picked this up this morning. The BBC's done a survey of GPs, Mike. And so I was picking this up when I was reading the news this morning. And hundreds of GPs have reacted to the BBC survey. And they're talking about how many fit notes, sick notes that they're giving out across the country. And this one will kind of get on your back, Mike. They were saying that hundreds of GPs, this is one of the top news stories today, hundreds of GPs have said they've never refused to give kind of a sick note to somebody who asks for mental health reasons. And we had 11.2 million overall kind of sick notes allocated last year. It's going up. 72% of them don't give a reason. And you need those kind of fit sick notes, whatever they're calling them. Well, obviously, when you're an employer, if you're going more than 5-7 days, literally, we're just seeing that going up and up and up and up and up. And literally, Mike, this is an epidemic of just basically, if you've got a mental health issue, go to the GP, say, "Oh, can you sign me off work?" Most of them are saying they won't even bother, challenging you on that. This is where this country's going from in terms of they talk about
partly
the mental
because
health.
as well, you don't have to actually physically go to the GP. You can just get a referral on video, or you get a referral on the phone. I used to talk to a doctor when I was at Talk, and he actually admitted to me that he would give people sick notes without ever seeing them. And I'm like, what? What? So how long can you sign? And he said, I can sign people off for like 9 weeks. All they've got to do is ring me up and say they want to be signed off for 9 weeks, and I'll sign them off.
Yeah, and then we had that time, didn't we, during the pandemic, where if you were ill, you weren't supposed to go and see the doctor, which was always bizarre. If you've got any symptoms of being ill, stay at home, which is what's the point of going to the doctor? That's the whole point of going to the doctor.
I always tell the
You're
story.
right.
One of my favourite sort of COVID moments was when somebody sent me a picture in, and they'd been down to their local GPs, right? And on the door there was a sign that said, "Please do not enter if you're ill." And you're going, "You're a doctor. Why do you think I'm come to see you? I mean, I'm ill. That's why I'm here." You're right. But they were like, "No, you don't want to come to us if you're ill."
Well, and you can imagine how many of those people who want to get a fit or a sick note can't even get through to the doctor. You always got that 8 a.m. in the morning kind of rush to try and get through to the GP, which you're going to go. But some of the big things out this week, Mike, I think we probably want to touch on. Digital ID seems to be resurfacing, and I saw that the minister who was talking about that was Darren Jones, and obviously he was put up again by Starmer about the Mandelson saga yesterday. He just seems to be either the unfortunate one that Starmer chucks out in front of the media to talk about stuff. He's pushing this digital ID again, Mike, and they're talking about it in relation to this gov.uk wallet. Basically, every transaction you have with government, it'll be logged, and it's basically an ID between you and the state. And I've got to remember, I imagine many of your listeners are against digital ID, and I am, and 1.8 billion cost. I remember when it was first mooted and you was on your old show at Talk, and I think it was within 24 hours of it coming out, Mike, and we talked about, remember what they said at the start, that digital ID was going to be the solution for all these illegal migrants coming over on small boats. This was going to be the solution for illegal working. Well, I come out and basically give you some facts that we've got digital ID in Europe, doesn't stop it over there. And we've got whistleblowers coming out, Mike, saying that this system doesn't meet the security standards that what you'd expect. You've got that 1.8 billion cost. And this just isn't the way that the government should be. We're always told, Mike, that money's tight. So how can we afford £1.8 billion for a policy that was never in the Labour manifesto? How do you work that one out?
Incredible. We've actually got a clip of Darren Jones talking to Nick Ferrari about this digital ID thing. Shall we have a look?
Can you give my listeners assurance now that it would be scrapped if the panel goes against you and your colleagues?
Well, it can definitely range from changes.
That, can you?
Well, it's a consultation.
What is the point of having a panel, Chief Secretary? You've already decided the outcome.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
So you will scrap it. If the panel finds against it, you will scrap it.
If we have unanimous feedback in the consultation that says everybody thinks it's a disaster, then we're probably not going to go ahead with it, because we need people to want to use it.
But what about a majority? 52 plays 48, numbers you might remember. How would that be?
Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll come back and talk to you about the consultation when we've gone through it.
So they're doing a consultation, right? But basically not going to pay any attention to what people say, because nobody wants it. There's no point, as you say. We haven't got the money. Two, we probably couldn't do it properly anyway, and you certainly can't guarantee people's security. And what's it for at the end of the day? If they're really going to say that they think this is going to stop the boats because people don't want to come here because they'll have to tell us who they are, what a load of old cobblers. I mean, you've got figures today showing me, I think, 816 crossings in 5 days on the old the dinghies. Ridiculous.
Yeah, and I put that out a few days ago, Mike, and 816. Then what we've had since, with another 309. It was my birthday on Monday, Mike. So my birthday present from the government was another 309 came over on small boats for us to pay for on the taxpayer. We've had over nearly 3,500 this year alone, 1,200 in a week. There's no deterrent. They talk about smashing the gangs. They then talk about digital ID will stop all of this because they won't be able to come over here and get any jobs. Then we were told, oh, we've got this one in, one out deal with the government in France that as soon as they come in, that's been an absolute shambles, which me and you were talking about and calling out at the time. Then, what was it last week? I think Shabana Mahood was talking about £10,000 each to leave. So they're up in the amount of money that you can get paid to leave, up to about £40,000 a family. The remarkable stat I saw in that, Mike, was they were saying that to house a family of 4 migrants, the asylum seekers, she was saying it was £158,000 a year. Are they putting them up in the Ritz or something, Mike, for that 100? Oh, they get £158,000 to house a family of 4 a year. Where's that number coming from? That is absolutely mental.
It's incredible, isn't it? Because you know why the numbers are so high in terms of the cost is because it's all run by government departments. It's like the old, those stories you used to get about the Ministry of Defence. How much does that hammer cost you? Oh, £43. Well, you could have bought it for £3 down at B&Q. No, but this is, military procurement. So therefore we pay through the nose. Same with Serco, who run most of these campaigns and most of these, shows where they move people out of hotels and into houses of multiple occupancy, and so everything is overcharged. Everything is sort of set up as a premium payment, and everything costs more money because it's in the public sector.
Yeah, and if you manage to get a deal with the NHS, I remember somebody saying that if you were in pain and you were in kind of hospital or you needed to go into the GP, the prescription charges for simple things like paracetamol, where you can probably buy it for 40p a pack, costs the NHS an absolute fortune. I always grew up, Mike, thinking that when you're a big monopoly on something, you can drive down costs, because if you think, well, I'm going to order so much off you, I'm a big government department, you should get things cheaper. But it does seem to go the other way, and that's the problem with these small boats and the costs, Mike. That what was it? I think nearly £5 billion just on the accommodation alone, and basically these kind of private companies you've mentioned, Serco. You've seen these adverts, haven't you, where they're literally writing to landlords, putting out events across the country, writing to landlords, trying to get them to give them homes so they can house them in these HMOs. This is just a complete racket that's costing the taxpayer money. We've got to get this deterrent, Mike. We've talked about it regularly on your show. The numbers are continuing to go up. They continue to cost the taxpayer until you get rid of this pull factor. So put in the amount of money that you got in. You imagine you could get somebody given 10 grand to leave, and they'll just come over and probably claim they're somebody else the next time they come over, because you have no documents of who these people are.
Well, exactly. And there's no way of checking whether they've tried to come in before, because they don't apparently keep records. That's the point. And I mean, we've had this conversation before, and I had it with Alp Mehmet, who's from the Migration Watch organisation, who said, you know, it's entirely possible that all of these figures that we've got are just really, really poor estimates of what's actually happening and how many people are actually coming in. Because we know, for example, that there's loads of areas of southeast England where you can land a boat, step out of it, run into the town, and nobody's ever seen you or heard of you. And you're not going through border force, you're not going through any kind of, you know, immigration process. You're just basically arriving in Britain like a rogue sort of pirate, you know. Might as well call them pirates as opposed to bleeding, you know, illegal migrants. It's just extraordinary. And nobody really knows the true numbers.
Well, the thing is as well, Mike, that you're right on that point, and some, no, not all the people coming over in these boats are paying these gangs the upfront money to basically come over on the boats. Many of them, and you see, I've seen some BBC reports on this where basically you've seen kind of illicit products being sold in kind of under the counter in some of the independent shops across the country because they come over and they put on the boats by gangs to come and work for the gangs in the UK. I've seen, you know, people have been telling me about this, and that's part of the problem. That if you want to get,
they work their passage, right, basically, because the gangs say, right, you're going to get into Britain, you're going to go work for me in this arena, whether it's sex trafficking or drug dealing or vape shops or barbers shops, whatever it is. I mean, I'm going to talk to Donald McLeod in a minute from Glasgow, who had that terrible event the other day where a vape shop had a fire, which ended up destroying half of the city centre, you know, and you can be absolutely bloody well sure that the people running that vape shop were probably not registered, probably not legal, and probably not in any way, you know, sorted by the fire department.
No, I did read somewhere, Mike. I don't know how accurate it was, but I did read that was unregulated as well. That vape store in Glasgow. So that's the problem. So all these people coming over, and you hear people from the left, and you know the Green Party, people in the Labour Party, some of the Lib Dems. We've got Plaid Cymru in Wales, where they want to like a nation of sanctuary for people coming over. They keep saying that, oh, these are leaving war-torn countries. Well, you know, people have clearly said the same thing for many, many years. They're in France. There's no war in France. So people are coming over here, going into the underground when they get here, working for these criminal gangs. And that's part of the problem. And the other big story, Mike, this week, which I think we just got to touch on, I know you were talking with Stephen yesterday, is this whole jury thing as well. That, you know, there was another policy not in the Labour manifesto. They've had over 3,000 kind of lawyers, judges, people from the kind of the profession, from the legal profession, telling them it's a bad idea. They keep telling us that getting rid of jury trials will fix the backlog. Well, you know, let's put some facts on there, Mike. That, you know, 1.3 billion prosecution, 1.3 million, sorry, prosecutions a year. 10% of them go to a Crown Court. Of those, only 3 in 10 go to a jury because many will plead guilty. Juries are not the problem here. Juries have not created a backlog. It's the government and the inefficiencies, and again, the public sector.
The lawyers about this. One of the reasons why there's a backlog is because half the courts in this country are not operational, because they haven't got enough people to run them. So if they actually opened all the courts up, they could get through a hell of a lot more cases than they do at the moment. But at the moment, they shut down for so many months of the year. Some of them don't open at all. And then, of course, they run a short working day as well. You know, you can't start before 10 o'clock in any court in this country, and you pretty much don't do much after 3. You know, so they could start clearing the backlog by opening at 9 or maybe even 8 in the morning and going all the way through till 6.
Yeah, well, you could become a judge, Mike. You can do your Mike Graham show and then pop along after the show.
And also, I can tell when somebody's guilty just by looking at them. So, you know, it's not a problem for me. Anyway, listen, Jamie. Oh, yeah, the poll. The poll today is, what is Keir Starmer's biggest shame? Because we can't believe he's still here and that he hasn't finally just been shamed into leaving after yesterday's Mandelson business, right? So, Chagos Islands, 31% of the public think it's that. Lord Ali, which everyone's forgotten about, with his free spectacles and underpants, 4%. Southport riots, 44%. And the Mandelson scandal, 21%. I think a lot of people feel very, very betrayed by Starmer on all sorts of fronts. But I mean, the Southport thing probably was the worst.
Well, yeah, so putting my stats head on, Mike, and then seeing the kind of number of people as well who've gone to prison for public order offences and like speech offences since Starmer's come. I think that's got to be the one basically for me, Mike. And that's my choice of kind of the Starmer reason for this week.
All right, mate. Good to see you. Jamie Jenkins, thank you very much indeed. Jamie Jenkins, our favourite statistician, reporting in from Welsh Wales, down there in the south of the country. Coming up, Donald Cameron MacLeod of the